Captain Laura Bennett stood at the edge of the forest staring at the dark trees ahead. She had been on many planets before, but something about Cathara 7 made her nervous. The air smelled sweet, almost too sweet, and the silence felt wrong. Birds should be singing, insects should be buzzing. But there was nothing. "Captain, we need to find him before dark," Nicole Harper said, checking her weapon. The security officer looked calm, but Laura could hear the worry in her voice. Marcus Flynn adjusted his scanner and frowned. Henry's last signal came from this area. He was collecting plant samples about 3 hours ago. Laura nodded and started walking into the forest. Her team followed close behind. They had been on Cathara 7 for only 3 days, and already they had lost someone. Dr. Henry Clark was a good scientist, careful and smart. He would not just wander off without telling anyone. Something had happened to him. The trees on Cathara 7 were tall and strange. Their bark looked like metal, and their leaves glowed faintly in the dim light. Laura's boots crunched on the forest floor, breaking the heavy silence. Every few steps she checked her scanner, looking for any sign of Henry's biosignature. "Over here," Marcus called out. He was standing in a small clearing, pointing at the ground. Laura ran over and saw Henry's equipment scattered everywhere. His sample bags lay torn open, plants spilling out onto the dirt. His scanner was still on, its screen cracked but functioning. "Where is he?" Nicole asked, her hand moving to her weapon. Laura picked up the scanner and checked the last recording. The video showed Henry kneeling by a strange purple plant, taking notes. Then the camera shook violently and the recording cut off. Whatever had happened, it had been fast. "We need to keep looking," Laura said. "He could be injured nearby." They spread out, searching the area carefully. Laura moved slowly, her eyes scanning every shadow, every unusual shape. The forest seemed to watch them, waiting for something. She felt like prey, and she did not like the feeling. Then she felt it. Tiny pinpricks on her back, like needles pressing through her suit. Laura froze, her heart pounding. She wanted to spin around to brush off whatever was on her, but some instinct told her to stay still. "Nicole, Marcus, don't move," she whispered into her comm. "What's wrong?" Nicole asked. "Something is on my back." Laura slowly activated her helmet's rear camera. The image appeared on her visor display, and she saw it. A small creature clung to her oxygen pack. It was about the size of a squirrel, with 6 thin legs and a round body covered in what looked like glass fur. 2 large eyes stared at her from the screen, eyes that seemed far too intelligent for such a small animal. The creature's claws dug into her pack, but it was not trying to hurt her. It just held on, watching, waiting. Laura had seen many alien species in her career, but this one felt different. "It felt aware, Captain. What is that thing?" Marcus asked, looking at his own scanner. "I don't know," Laura said, "but it's not attacking. Just stay calm." The small creature tilted its head as if studying her. Then it made a sound, a high-pitched whistle that cut through the silence like a knife. The whistle was complex, musical, not just a random noise. It was communication. Laura's blood ran cold. The forest, which had been silent moments before, suddenly came alive with sounds. Rustling leaves, breaking branches, heavy footsteps moving through the undergrowth. Something big was coming toward them. "We need to leave now," Nicole said, raising her weapon, but before they could move, it appeared. The creature stepped out from behind a massive tree, and Laura felt her breath catch in her throat. It stood nearly 3 meters tall, with a body like a tiger but larger, more powerful. Its 4 legs were thick with muscle, each ending in claws as long as Laura's hand. A serpentine neck supported a head filled with curved teeth that gleamed in the faint light. This was a predator, an apex predator, and they were in its territory. The creature's eyes locked onto Laura. It took a step forward, then another. Its movements were slow, deliberate, like a cat stalking a mouse. Nicole aimed her weapon at the beast, but Laura grabbed her arm. "Don't shoot," Laura whispered. "Not yet." The small creature on Laura's back whistled again. This time the sound was different, more urgent, more insistent. The massive predator stopped walking. It tilted its head to the side, listening to the tiny creature's call. Laura could not believe what she was seeing. The small being whistled a 3rd time, a long, complex pattern of notes that seemed to carry meaning. The huge predator responded with a low rumble from deep in its chest. Then incredibly it began to back away. The giant creature moved slowly, never taking its eyes off Laura and her team. The small being on Laura's back whistled one more time, softer now, almost gentle. The predator turned and disappeared into the forest, its heavy footsteps fading into the distance. For several seconds, Nobody moved. Nobody even breathed. Then the small creature released its grip on Laura's pack and scurried down her arm. It paused on her wrist, looking up at her with those strange, intelligent eyes. Laura felt a connection in that moment, a sense of understanding that crossed the barrier between species. The creature whistled softly, then jumped to the ground and ran into the forest, following the path the larger predator had taken. Within moments it was gone, leaving Laura and her team alone in the clearing. "What just happened?" Marcus asked, his voice shaking. Laura watched the spot where the creatures had disappeared. Her mind raced, trying to make sense of what she had witnessed. The small being had controlled the larger one, or at least influenced it. The whistle had been a language, a way of communicating, and somehow that tiny creature had saved their lives. "I don't know," Laura finally said, "but we need to understand it. Those two species are connected somehow. The small one protected us from the large one." Nicole lowered her weapon. "That big thing could have killed us in seconds, but it listened to that little creature." "Exactly," Laura said. "This planet has something we've never seen before. A relationship between two completely different species. We need to study this. What about Henry?" Marcus asked. Laura looked at the scattered equipment again. "We keep searching. But we also need to be smart about this. Those creatures might know where Henry is. If we can find them again, maybe we can communicate." The team continued their search, but Laura's mind stayed on the encounter. The tiny claws on her back had been the beginning of something important. She could feel it. This was not just another planet to survey and document. This was a world with secrets, with intelligence beyond what they had expected to find. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows through the strange metal trees, Laura made a decision. They would not just study Cathara 7, they would learn from it, and maybe, just maybe, they would find a way to speak with the creatures who called it home. The forest grew darker, and somewhere in the distance, a whistle echoed through the trees. Laura smiled. They were being watched, but now she understood that being watched might not be a bad thing. The hunt for Henry would continue tomorrow. Tonight, they would return to base camp and analyze everything they had learned. But Laura knew one thing for certain now. Humanity was not alone on Cathara 7, and the beings who lived here were far more complex than anyone had imagined. Laura sat in the command center, watching the video for the 20th time. The footage from her helmet camera showed everything clearly. The small creature whistling on her back, the massive predator stopping its attack, the way the two beings seemed to communicate without words, just sounds and understanding. "This is amazing," Dr. Amy Foster said, leaning closer to the screen. The behavioral specialist had barely slept since seeing the recording. "Look at how the large one responds. It's not just instinct. That's intelligence. That's choice. So what are we dealing with?" Laura asked. "Two intelligent species living together?" Amy nodded slowly. "I think it's more than that. I think they need each other. The small ones, let's call them whistlers, they seem to guide the big ones. And the big ones, I'm calling them stalkers, they provide protection." Marcus brought up more data on the secondary screen. "I've been scanning the forest all morning. There are hundreds of whistlers out there, and they're always near the stalkers. I haven't seen a single stalker without at least one whistler nearby." Over the next week, the team watched and learned. They set up cameras throughout the forest, capturing hours of footage. What they discovered changed everything they thought they knew about alien life. The whistlers were small but clever. They climbed trees with ease, their 6 legs gripping bark that seemed too smooth to hold. They had excellent eyesight and hearing, much better than the stalkers. When danger approached, the whistlers would whistle warnings, and the stalkers would respond immediately. But it was more than just warnings. The whistlers seemed to direct the stalkers during hunts. Laura watched one recording where 3 whistlers coordinated an attack on a large herbivore. Each whistler rode on a different stalker, whistling commands. The stalkers moved in perfect formation, surrounding their prey. The hunt was over in minutes. "It's beautiful," Amy said, watching the same footage. "They work together like they're one organism. The whistlers are the eyes and ears. The stalkers are the muscle and teeth, but why?" Nicole asked.
"How did this happen?"
Amy pulled up her research notes. "I think they evolved together. Millions of years ago, maybe the whistlers were just small animals trying to survive. They learned that staying near the stalkers kept them safe from other predators. And the stalkers learned that the whistlers could help them hunt better. Over time, they became dependent on each other. That's symbiosis," Marcus said. like birds that clean crocodile teeth. Exactly, Amy agreed. But this is more advanced than anything we've seen before. These species have language. They have cooperation. They have culture. Laura stood and walked to the window. Outside, the forest stretched as far as she could see. Somewhere out there, Henry was still missing. They had searched every day but found nothing. No body, no more equipment, just silence. We need to find Henry, Laura said quietly. It's been 12 days. Captain, I hate to say this, but maybe we should consider that he's gone, Nicole said gently. If the stalkers got him— No, Laura interrupted. The stalkers had chances to attack us. They didn't. Something else is happening here. As if answering her words, a whistler appeared at the edge of the camp. It sat on a rock, its glass-like fur catching the sunlight. The creature looked directly at Laura through the window. Laura made a decision. She grabbed her jacket and headed for the door. Captain, where are you going? Marcus called after her. To talk to our visitor, Laura said. She walked slowly toward the whistler, her hands visible and empty. The creature watched her approach but did not run. When Laura was a few meters away, she stopped and crouched down to appear less threatening. Hello? Laura said softly. Can you understand me? The whistler tilted its head. Then it whistled. A short, simple pattern of 3 notes. Laura tried to copy the sound. Her whistle was clumsy, wrong, but the whistler seemed to recognize the attempt. It whistled again, the same 3 notes, but slower this time. For the next hour, Laura worked on communication. She learned that different whistles meant different things. High notes seemed to mean danger or urgency. Low notes meant calm or safety. Complex patterns carried more meaning, like sentences instead of single words. The whistler seemed patient with her efforts. It repeated sounds when Laura got them wrong. It waited when she needed time to think. This was not just an animal responding to training. This was a teacher working with a student. Finally, the whistler made a new sound, a rising pattern that ended with a questioning note. Then it turned and started walking toward the forest. After a few steps, it stopped and looked back at Laura, whistling again. It wants me to follow, Laura said into her comm. Captain, that could be dangerous, Nicole responded. I know, but I think it's trying to help us. Stay on this channel. If anything goes wrong, come find me. Laura followed the whistler into the forest. The creature moved slowly, checking often to make sure Laura was still behind it. They walked for over an hour, moving deeper into areas the team had not yet explored. Laura marked their path on her scanner, creating a trail she could follow back. The whistler led her to a rocky hillside. At the base of the hill was a dark opening, a cave entrance hidden by hanging vines. The whistler stopped and whistled urgently, pointing with one small paw toward the darkness. Laura pulled out her flashlight and stepped carefully into the cave. The passage was narrow at first, but it opened into a larger chamber, and there, sitting against the far wall, was Henry. Henry! Laura ran to him. The scientist looked thin and pale but alive. His left leg was wrapped in torn pieces of his jacket, clearly broken. Laura, Henry said weakly. I can't believe you found me. I didn't find you, Laura said, examining his leg. The whistlers did. They led me here. How long have you been in this cave? Since the first day, Henry explained. I fell into a hole while collecting samples. Broke my leg on the rocks. I managed to crawl in here, but I couldn't walk. I thought I was going to die. But you didn't. How did you survive? Henry pointed to a small pile in the corner of the cave. Laura's flashlight revealed fruits, roots, and what looked like cooked meat. They brought me food. The whistlers. Every day they would come with something to eat. Sometimes water too, in these weird leaf containers. Laura felt her throat tighten with emotion. They saved your life. I know, Henry said. I don't understand why. I'm not one of them. I'm not even from this planet, but they helped me anyway. Laura called the rest of the team, and within 2 hours they had Henry back at the base camp. Amy examined him while Marcus set his broken leg properly. Henry would recover, but he would need weeks of rest. That evening, Laura stood outside and watched the forest. 3 whistlers sat in the trees nearby, their eyes glowing softly in the darkness. They had saved Henry. They had helped Laura communicate. They had chosen to protect humans even though they had no reason to trust them. Why did you help us? Laura whispered to the night. One of the whistlers whistled back, a soft, gentle sound that somehow felt like an answer. Laura did not know what the whistle meant exactly, but she felt its intention. Kindness, compassion, connection. Amy joined her outside. This changes everything, you know. If the whistlers are intelligent enough to show empathy to another species, they're not just smart animals. They're people. I know, Laura said, which means we need to protect them. This planet isn't just a research site anymore. It's someone's home. What do we do now? Amy asked. Laura looked at the whistlers in the trees. One of them whistled again, and somewhere in the forest a stalker rumbled in response. Two species working together, living in harmony. They had built something beautiful on Cathara 7, something humans could learn from. Now we learn everything we can, Laura said. We document their language, their culture, their relationship, and we make sure nobody destroys what they've built here. In the darkness, the whistlers sang their evening chorus, and Laura listened to every note. The alarm woke Laura at dawn. She rolled out of bed and ran to the command center, still wearing her sleep clothes. Marcus was already at the console, his face tight with worry. We have a problem, Marcus said, pointing at the screen. A ship just entered orbit, big one. Corporate mining vessel. Laura felt her stomach drop. She had known this moment might come, but she had hoped for more time. Identification? Titan's Fortune, Marcus read from the display. Registered to Core Mining Industries. Captain is listed as Director Patrick Cole. The name made Laura wince. Patrick Cole was famous in the colony worlds, but not in a good way. He was known for aggressive mining operations that destroyed ecosystems. He cared about profit, nothing else. And now he was here orbiting Cathara 7. Are they hailing us? Laura asked. Yes, Captain. They've been trying to reach you for 10 minutes. Laura took a deep breath and opened the channel. Patrick Cole's face appeared on the screen. He was older than Laura expected, with gray hair and cold eyes. He smiled, but it was not a friendly smile. Captain Bennett, Patrick said, I hope I'm not disturbing your research. Director Cole, Laura replied carefully. What brings you to Cathara 7? The same thing that brings me anywhere. Resources. My scans show this planet has rich deposits of rare Earth elements. Very valuable, very profitable. This planet is under a research permit, Laura said. Any mining operations need to be approved through proper channels. Patrick's smile widened. I have approvals, Captain. Core Mining Industries purchased development rights to the system 3 months ago. Your research permit is secondary to commercial interests. I'm afraid I need you and your team to evacuate within 48 hours. 48 hours? That's not enough time to pack our equipment, let alone finish our research. Not my problem, Patrick said simply. I have deadlines and quotas. My mining drones are already being prepped for descent. I suggest you pack quickly. The screen went dark. Laura stared at it, her mind racing. 48 hours. 2 days to pack up weeks of work. 2 days before Patrick's machines started tearing into the forest. Amy came running into the command center. Tell me that wasn't what I think it was. Mining company, Laura said. They want the planet. They want us gone. They can't do this, Amy protested. We're in the middle of documenting a unique symbiotic relationship. The whistlers and stalkers could teach us so much about evolution, cooperation, intelligence. They don't care about that, Nicole said, entering behind Amy. They care about money. Laura turned to Marcus. How long before we can get a message to headquarters? At this distance? 4 days minimum, and that's just for the message to arrive. Response time would be another 4 days. We don't have that long, Laura said. She thought about the whistlers, about how they had saved Henry, about the complex culture they had begun to document. Marcus, show me where the mining deposits are located. Marcus pulled up a geological map. Red zones marked the areas where rare earth elements were concentrated. Laura's heart sank. The deposits were everywhere, running through the entire forest like veins of blood. But the highest concentration was directly beneath their base camp, in the heart of Whistler and Stalker territory. If they start drilling there, Amy said quietly, it will destroy everything. The vibrations alone will drive the wildlife insane. The Whistlers use sound for communication. Constant drilling will make it impossible for them to hear each other. Laura remembered watching Whistler families in the forest, the way parents taught their young through careful whistled lessons. She remembered seeing stalkers and whistlers working together to bring down prey, their coordination perfect and beautiful. All of that would end if Patrick had his way. We need to stop this, Laura said. How? Nicole asked. We don't have weapons. We don't have authority. We're just researchers. Then we use what we do have, Laura said. Evidence, documentation, proof that this planet deserves protection. She turned to Amy. You said the whistlers show signs of intelligence. Real intelligence. Can you prove it? Amy nodded slowly. I think so. I've been running tests for the past week. Problem solving, tool use, cultural transmission. The whistlers pass every measure we use to determine sentience. Then that's our weapon, Laura said. Under the Sentient Species Preservation Act, mining operations must stop if there's evidence of intelligent native life. We just need to prove the whistlers qualify. That could take months, Marcus said. Patrick's drones will be here in 2 days. Then we work fast, Laura said. The team barely slept for the next 40 hours. Amy set up tests throughout the forest, carefully designed challenges that would demonstrate cognitive abilities. The whistlers proved remarkably cooperative, almost as if they understood something important was happening. The first test involved puzzle boxes with food inside. The whistlers needed to manipulate several locks in the correct order to open them. Most animals would try random actions until they succeeded by chance. But the whistlers studied the boxes first, examining each lock. Then they solved the puzzles quickly, efficiently, showing clear understanding of cause and effect. The second test was even more impressive. Amy placed a series of tools near a food source that was out of reach. The whistlers needed to select the right tool and use it correctly. Not only did they choose wisely, but they modified one of the tools to work better, bending a piece of wire into a hook shape. That's tool creation, Amy said excitedly, not just tool use. They're manufacturing equipment to solve problems. But the most important discovery came from Henry. Despite his injured leg, he insisted on helping with the research. He spent hours in the forest watching whistler communities documenting their behavior. Look at this, Henry said, showing Laura his recordings. The video showed a group of whistlers in a small clearing. They had arranged stones in complex geometric patterns on the ground. Different families had different patterns like signatures or flags. What am I seeing? Laura asked Art, Henry said. Culture. Each family group creates their own unique design. They teach it to their children. They maintain it, repair it when storms damage it. This isn't instinct, Laura. This is tradition. Laura felt hope rising in her chest. This is it. This proves sentience. Animals don't create art. Animals don't pass down cultural traditions. There's more, Henry added. I found 12 different clearing sites. Each one has a unique pattern, but they share common elements. It's like different dialects of the same language, expressed visually instead of audibly. Laura gathered all the evidence and composed a message to send to Patrick. She included video, test results, analysis, everything they had discovered. She made the message formal and official, citing specific laws and regulations. The response came within an hour. Patrick's face appeared on the screen again, and he was not smiling anymore. Interesting research, Captain Bennett, Patrick said, but I'm not convinced. You've shown me that these creatures are clever. Many animals are clever. Dogs can solve puzzles. Crows use tools. That doesn't make them legally protected species. But the art, Laura protested, the cultural transmission, could be instinctive behavior, Patrick dismissed. Birds build nests in specific patterns. Bees create geometric honeycombs. Without more evidence, I'm proceeding with operations as planned. You're making a mistake, Laura said. Maybe, Patrick said, but it's my mistake to make. I suggest you finish packing, Captain. My drones descend tomorrow morning. The channel closed. Laura stood in the command center, feeling helpless. They had proof, but it was not enough. Patrick would not listen to reason because reason did not make him money. That night, Laura could not sleep. She walked outside and saw whistlers watching from the trees. They seemed agitated, nervous. In the distance, she could hear stalkers growling uneasily. The animals knew something was wrong. They could feel the danger coming. One whistler, the same one who had led Laura to Henry's cave, climbed down and approached her. It whistled softly, a questioning sound. I'm sorry, Laura whispered. I tried to stop them, but I don't know what else to do. The whistler tilted its head, then whistled again. This time the sound was different. It was a call, a summoning. Within minutes, dozens of whistlers emerged from the forest. Behind them came the stalkers, their massive forms moving silently through the shadows. They gathered around Laura, these alien beings who had chosen to trust humanity. They looked at her with intelligent eyes, waiting, hoping she would protect them. Laura felt something shift inside her. Patrick had the law on his side. He had power and money and corporate backing. But Laura had something more important. She had the truth. And she had allies, both human and alien. All right, Laura said to the assembled creatures and to her own team, who had come outside to see what was happening. If Patrick won't listen to reason, we'll have to show him something he can't ignore. We'll make him see what he's about to destroy. Amy stepped forward. What are you thinking? Laura looked at the whistlers and stalkers, at the forest they called home, at the complex society they had built over millions of years. We're going to make a stand. Dawn came too quickly. Laura stood at the edge of base camp watching the sky. Somewhere up there, Patrick's mining drones were preparing to descend, giant machines designed to tear through rock and soil, to extract valuable minerals and leave nothing but destruction behind. Captain, we have incoming, Marcus called from the command center. First wave of drones, 6 machines, each the size of a small building. Laura activated her comm and broadcast on all frequencies, making sure both Patrick and the rest of the galaxy could hear her words. This is Captain Laura. Bennett of the Horizon's Edge, I am declaring Kethra 7 a potential protected world under the Sentient Species Preservation Act. I formally request immediate suspension of all industrial activity pending full investigation. Patrick's voice came back harsh and angry. Your request is denied, Captain. You don't have the authority to declare anything. Those drones are landing in 10 minutes. Then you'll have to go through me, Laura said calmly. What? I'm standing at the primary drilling site. If you want to drill here, your machines will have to move me first. There was silence on the comm for several seconds. Then Patrick spoke again, his voice dangerous. Captain Bennett, you're interfering with legal corporate operations. That's a serious crime. And you're potentially destroying an intelligent species, Laura replied. That's genocide. I'll take my chances with the law. Amy, Nicole, Henry, and Marcus came to stand beside Laura. The entire research team, united. Nicole placed a hand on Laura's shoulder. We're with you, Captain. You're all making a mistake, Patrick warned. I'll have you arrested. You'll lose your licenses. Your careers will be over. Maybe, Laura said. But at least we'll be able to sleep at night. She cut the comm and turned to her team. Thank you. All of you. But what comes next might be dangerous. If anyone wants to go back to the ship, I understand. Nobody moved. They stood together, facing the sky, waiting for the drones. The machines descended slowly, their engines roaring like thunder. Each drone was massive, bristling with drills and excavation equipment. They came down in a clearing near the base camp, their landing gear crushing trees and flowers beneath their weight. Laura watched them land, her heart pounding. This was really happening. She was defying corporate authority, breaking regulations, risking everything. But when she thought about the whistlers and stalkers, about the complex society that lived in this forest, she knew she was making the right choice. The drones powered up their drilling equipment. The sound was terrible, a high-pitched whine that cut through the air like a blade. Laura saw whistlers in the trees covering their sensitive ears, whistling in distress. The vibrations from the machines made the ground shake. We need to stop them, Amy said urgently. The whistlers use sound for everything. This noise is like torture for them. Laura started walking toward the nearest drone. Her team followed. They stood in front of the massive machine, blocking its path to the drilling site. The drone's sensors detected them and the machine stopped. Its automated systems programmed to avoid harming humans. They can't drill while we're here, Marcus said. The safety protocols won't allow it. But then Patrick's voice came through the drone's external speakers. Captain Bennett, move aside immediately. I'm overriding the safety protocols. If you don't move, that's your choice. The drone's engine revved louder. It was preparing to move forward, humans or no humans. Laura stood her ground, but she felt fear creeping up her spine. Patrick was serious. He would actually do this. And then she heard it, a whistle high and clear, cutting through even the noise of the machines. She turned and saw them. Whistlers, hundreds of them, emerging from the forest. They came from every direction, pouring out of the trees like a living wave. And behind them, moving with terrible purpose, came the stalkers. The massive predators walked slowly, their eyes fixed on the mining drones. There were dozens of them, perhaps more than 100, all coordinating their movements. Each stalker carried at least 2 or 3 whistlers on its back, and the small creatures were whistling constantly, their sounds blending into a chorus of defiance. Oh my God, Nicole whispered. They're protecting us. The whistlers and stalkers formed a line between the humans and the mining drones. They did not attack the machines. They simply stood there, a living wall of fur and scale and determination. More kept coming, flowing out of the forest until the entire area was filled with them. Laura felt tears in her eyes. These beings, these alien creatures who owed humanity nothing, were putting themselves at risk to help. They had understood what the research team was trying to do, and they had chosen to join the fight. Patrick's voice came through the speakers again, but now there was uncertainty in it. "What is happening down there?" "You're seeing cooperation, Director Cole," Laura said. "You're seeing what happens when different species choose to stand together." She turned to Amy. "Are you recording this?" "Every second," Amy confirmed. "And I'm broadcasting it. Anyone with a receiver in this system can see what's happening." Laura smiled. That was the key. Public opinion. Patrick could ignore research data. He could override safety protocols, but he could not ignore the entire galaxy watching him prepare to destroy a peaceful alien civilization. "Everyone," Laura said into her comm, broadcasting widely. "You're witnessing something unique. The creatures of Cathara 7 are demonstrating intelligence, cooperation, and peaceful resistance. They're not attacking these machines. They're not trying to hurt anyone. They're simply standing in defense of their home." She walked closer to the line of whistlers and stalkers. The same whistler who had befriended her, who had led her to Henry, climbed down from a stalker's back and approached. Laura knelt, bringing herself to the creature's level. "Thank you," she said softly. The whistler whistled back, a gentle sound full of what Laura could only interpret as solidarity. The small creature reached out with one paw and touched Laura's hand. It was a simple gesture, but it carried enormous meaning. This was not just animal behavior. This was conscious choice. This was friendship. Amy was crying now, recording everything. This is what we came to space to find. Not resources to exploit, not planets to strip mine, but connection, understanding, partnership. The standoff continued through the day. The mining drones sat idle, their drills silent, surrounded by hundreds of alien beings who refused to move. Laura and her team stayed with them, sharing water and food, tending to whistlers who grew tired, marveling at the patience and discipline of the stalkers. As the sun began to set, Patrick tried one last time. "Captain Bennett, this is your final warning. Move aside or face the consequences." "No," Laura said simply. "We're not moving, and neither are they." "Then you're all guilty of interfering with corporate operations." "Add it to the list," Laura replied. "But know this, Director Cole, the whole galaxy is watching. Every news feed, every message board, every social channel is talking about Cathara 7. They're seeing peaceful beings defending their home. They're seeing humans standing with aliens against corporate greed. If you move those drones forward now, if you hurt any of these creatures, you won't just be breaking laws, you'll be breaking hearts. And the galaxy has a long memory." There was a long silence. Laura held her breath, wondering if Patrick would actually do it. Would he really order the drones to move forward, crushing whistlers and stalkers and humans alike? Then finally Patrick spoke. His voice was tight with anger, but there was something else there too. Defeat. "Stand down," he ordered. All drones returned to orbit. The massive machines powered down their drills. Slowly, almost reluctantly, they lifted off the ground and began ascending back toward the Titan's fortune. Laura watched them go, barely able to believe it. They had won. Around her, the whistlers began to whistle. It was a song, a celebration, a sound of victory. The stalkers rumbled deep in their chests, a counterpoint to the high whistles. Together, humans and aliens had defended Cathara 7. But Laura knew this was not over. Patrick had retreated, but he had not given up. The real battle would be fought in courts and committees, in government offices and corporate boardrooms. They needed to make sure the protection for Cathara 7 became permanent. "Marcus," Laura said, turning to her engineer, "get me a channel to Colonial Administration. Full priority. It's time to make this official." As the twin moons rose over Cathara 7, Laura stood surrounded by whistlers and stalkers, by her loyal team, by beings from two worlds who had found common cause. Whatever came next, whatever legal battles they would face, she knew one thing for certain. They had proven that cooperation was stronger than greed. That standing together meant something, and that the galaxy was big enough for everyone to share. 3 days passed in tense waiting. Patrick's ship remained in orbit, silent but present. Laura knew he was talking to his corporate lawyers, trying to find a way to overturn the protection order. But every hour that passed without drilling was a victory. The research team worked around the clock, documenting everything about the whistlers and stalkers. Every behavior, every interaction, every sign of intelligence. They needed evidence so strong that no court could ignore it. On the fourth day, Laura received a transmission from Colonial Administration. She gathered her team in the command center, her hands shaking slightly as she opened the channel. Administrator Helen Price appeared on the screen. She was an older woman with sharp eyes and a reputation for fairness. Laura had met her once before, years ago, and remembered her as someone who valued facts over politics. "Captain Bennett," Helen said, "I've reviewed your reports. I've also seen the footage that's been circulating. The entire galaxy has seen it." "Yes, Administrator," Laura said carefully. "What's the decision?" Helen smiled, and Laura felt hope surge in her chest. "The Colonial Council met in emergency session last night. By unanimous vote, we are declaring Cathara 7 a protected world under the Sentient Species Preservation Act. All mining operations are permanently banned. Core Mining Industries has been ordered to leave the system immediately." Amy let out a cheer. Marcus hugged Nicole. Henry, still recovering from his broken leg, smiled broadly. Laura felt tears running down her face, but she was too happy to care. "Thank you, Administrator," Laura said. "Thank you so much." "Don't thank me," Helen replied. "Thank those creatures who stood with you. They made the case better than any lawyer could." The images of humans and aliens standing together peacefully, that's what changed minds. "What happens now?" Laura asked. "Your research permit is being converted to a permanent station license. The Horizon's Edge will become a research outpost. You'll study the whistlers and stalkers, document their culture, learn their language, and Captain Bennett, the Council would like you to serve as the station director, if you're willing." Laura looked at her team, at the forest visible through the window, at the whistlers watching from the trees outside. "I'm willing," she said. "We all are." After the call ended, Laura walked outside. The whistler who had become her friend, the one she privately called Scout, was waiting for her. The small creature whistled happily and climbed onto her shoulder. "We did it," Laura said to Scout. "Your home is safe." Scout whistled back. A complex pattern that Laura was beginning to understand meant gratitude and friendship. Over the following weeks, Patrick and the Titan's fortune departed. Laura watched the ship leave orbit with relief. That chapter was closed. Now a new one could begin. The research station grew. More scientists arrived, eager to study Cathara 7. Linguists worked on decoding the Whistler language. Biologists studied the symbiotic relationship between whistlers and stalkers. Anthropologists documented the culture and art of both species. Henry made breakthrough after breakthrough. Despite his injury, he spent hours in the forest, and the whistlers seemed to trust him completely. He discovered that the geometric patterns they created were more than just art. They were history books, maps, and mathematical concepts all combined into visual language. "Look at this," Henry showed Laura one afternoon. They stood in a clearing where a family of whistlers maintained an elaborate stone pattern. "This section here represents the passing of seasons. This part shows the family lineage. And I think this is actually a star map." "A star map?" Laura asked in amazement. "The whistlers have been watching the sky for generations," Henry explained. "They track stars, predict eclipses, understand orbital mechanics. They might not have technology, but they have science." Amy's work was equally important. She had learned enough of the whistler language to hold basic conversations. The breakthrough came when she realized that whistlers had different dialects based on which stalker family they bonded with. The language was passed down through both whistler and stalker lineages, creating a complex web of communication that united both species. "They're not two species living together," Amy explained during a research briefing. "They're one civilization with two forms. The whistlers provide intelligence and communication. The stalkers provide strength and protection. Together, they're complete." Marcus made practical discoveries. He learned that certain whistler whistles could calm aggressive animals or warn of dangerous weather. Stalkers could detect seismic activity hours before it occurred, and whistlers could interpret their warnings. The two species had evolved to survive on a sometimes hostile planet, and their cooperation was the key to their success. But the most meaningful moments came in small interactions. Laura spent an evening teaching Scout about human music, playing recordings from her personal collection. Scout listened carefully, then tried to recreate the melodies and whistles. The results were beautiful, a blending of human and alien art. Nicole formed a bond with a young stalker she named Shadow. Despite its size and predator nature, Shadow was gentle and curious. Nicole discovered that stalkers enjoyed physical affection much like cats. Shadow would often come to the research station and rest its massive head on Nicole's lap while she worked. 6 months after the standoff with Patrick, Laura stood at a ceremony marking the official opening of the Cathara research station. Representatives from a dozen worlds attended, along with scientists, journalists, and government officials. But the guests of honor were the Whistlers and Stalkers themselves. Several Whistler families had agreed to participate in the ceremony. They created a new geometric pattern in the central plaza, incorporating human symbols alongside their traditional designs. It was a work of art that represented two civilizations coming together in peace. Laura gave a speech, translated into Whistler language by Amy, and broadcast across the galaxy. Today marks the beginning of a new era, an era where humans don't just explore space but build relationships with those we find there. The beings of Cathara 7 have taught us that intelligence comes in many forms, that cooperation is more valuable than conflict, that different species can not only coexist but thrive together. Scout, sitting on Laura's shoulder during the speech, whistled in agreement. The sound was picked up by microphones and transmitted across the stars. Billions of beings across the galaxy heard that whistle and understood its meaning: hope, unity, friendship. After the ceremony, Laura walked through the forest with Scout. They had walked this path many times now, and Laura knew every tree, every stream, every clearing. This was home now, as much as any planet she had been born on. They came to the spot where Laura had first felt tiny claws on her back, where a stalker had almost attacked before Scout intervened. It felt like a lifetime ago, though it had been less than a year. I was scared that day, Laura admitted to Scout. I didn't understand what was happening, but you saved me. You saved all of us. Scout whistled softly, a sound Laura now knew meant that she would do it again without hesitation. They sat together in the clearing as the sun set. Other whistlers joined them, along with several stalkers. The creatures settled around Laura, comfortable in her presence, accepting her as part of their world. In the distance, she could hear the sounds of the research station, humans and aliens working together, learning from each other. Laura thought about how different things could have been. If Patrick had arrived first, this forest would be gone. The whistlers and stalkers would be dead or displaced. All this beauty, all this intelligence, all this potential for connection would have been destroyed for profit. But it hadn't happened. Because one small creature had chosen to save a human, because humans had chosen to listen and learn instead of exploit, because both species had been willing to stand together when it mattered. Thank you, Laura whispered to Scout and to all the beings around her. Thank you for giving us this chance. Scout climbed into Laura's lap and curled up, whistling contentedly. Above them, Cathara 7's twin moons rose into the sky, casting silver light through the strange metal trees. Somewhere in the forest, a stalker called out, and a dozen whistlers answered with their complex whistles. Laura closed her eyes and listened to the symphony of alien voices. This was what humanity had always been searching for among the stars. Not conquest or resources or power, but connection, understanding. The knowledge that in this vast, strange universe we are not alone. The next day, Laura received a message from Administrator Price. The Colonial Council wanted to establish similar research stations on other worlds. They wanted to find more species like the whistlers and stalkers, more chances to build bridges instead of walls. Laura was asked to help choose the teams, to train new researchers in the methods that had worked so well on Cathara 7. It was an enormous responsibility, but also an enormous opportunity. The model they had created here, of respectful cooperation between species, could spread throughout the galaxy. What do you think? Laura asked Scout. Should I help them? Scout whistled enthusiastically. The small creature understood more than Laura had once thought possible. Scout knew that what they had built together on Cathara 7 was special and worth sharing. All right then, Laura said. We'll help them. But you have to come with me sometimes. They need to meet you,